Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Off-Screen podcast for the Oakville Festival of Film and Arts. My name is Ian Tyson. I was your host for 2022 at all of the premiere evenings for the galas and, of course, for the awards as well. And it's been my thrill to be hosting these conversations with some of the wonderful filmmakers that we had at the Oakville Film Festival this year. Today, I am absolutely thrilled to be talking with the director of one of the award-winning films, Drinkwater. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome, that side, Stephen Campanelli.
Hi, Ian. Hi, everybody listening. And glad to be here. Real honor.
It's fantastic to chat with you. Well, let's just dive into it with Drinkwater. I can't tell you how much. I mean, I'm a sucker for the 80s to begin with, because that was my time. I'm a sucker for 80s Canadian music and just for 80s movies. And there's so many elements of things. It was just an absolutely delightful film in so many ways. What I wanted to first ask you is, how did this story come to you? In terms of the screenwriter, is it your story? Did the screenwriter's record? It was pitched to you. How did that all work?
Well, the story came to me in 2020. We were all in the middle of the pandemic and not sure what was going on with life. But the producers had seen my film Indian Horse that I had directed a few years earlier, which was completely opposite, obviously, to this film. And they said, well, that guy's a great filmmaker. We should see if we can get him. And they didn't think they could afford me or find me or whatever, but they did. And I read the script and I just fell in love with it. And it was just such a charming film. And especially being in the times we were in, I said, man, people need to laugh. People need to have a good time and put a smile on their face and forget about the world's problems for a while. And I said, I'm in. Like, no matter what. I didn't know what the budget was. I didn't know anything, but I said I knew there was a good, charming script here. And, we changed a few things during the course of my run and changed a little bit of the ending, changed a bit of something in the characters and some of the writing. But the writing was definitely there to begin with. It was written by Luke Fraser and his partner, Ted. Luke is Graham Fraser, our producer's son. And they both did an amazing job writing this script. And, like they always say, it always does start with the script. And this one definitely did.
It's awesome. And so what was it about the script when it came to you that really, I mean, yes, the lightness, the laughter, given the times that we were in and still are in a lot of ways, but what were some of the elements that really drew you into the story?
Well, the biggest one would be the Canadiana of it all. I just love it, being a proud Canadian. I wanted to make fun of ourselves and our country and all our little Canadianisms. And, it takes place in modern times, but I wanted to give it an 80s John Hughes type of feel, which, we all grew up with. Well, some of us. And I just wanted to harken.
We're in the same neighborhood, Stephen.
Yeah,
Don't
exactly.
worry about that.
Yeah. I meant your listeners. There's probably some young ones out there, but definitely I wanted people to really enjoy this kind of film and just have a good laugh. And that's what drew me to it. There was some very intelligent comedy in there, some fine writing. And then I was just blessed to have, one of the best casts ever, who just did some wonderful improvs and took the lines on the paper and just made it their own and made it even funnier than what was written. So.
Well, and that was my curiosity in watching it, because there are obviously so many central characters and their portrayals by the actors that portrayed them were so pivotal that I couldn't see anybody else doing it. Was wondering about the order of things, like who did you get first in terms of anchoring that cast?
Boy, that's a good question. I don't actually remember who was first. I mean, maybe my producer would, but we saw so many. I must have seen, because because of the pandemic, everyone was available. So I think we saw I think we saw almost 3,000 auditions on tape. So it was a lot of people. But I know Daniel Doney and Larissa Tronco were two. They played Mike Drinkwater and Wallace, our two main leads. They were the two that we kept coming back to. We put them in a folder, just waited, see everyone else, see what else out there. But they're the ones I just kept coming back to. And they were just so great. Then it all fell into place after that. Bob Fraser and Alex Sahara and all the people, Vincent Chang playing the grandfather. And slowly, eventually, we rounded up our cast. But then we said, well, we need one like anchor name. We need one Canadian icon to be in this movie, And so Graham and I both thought of, said, well, who could be great with this role? And, the name Eric McCormack came up a few times. And we thought, boy, wouldn't it be great to get him? But, we didn't have a huge budget. And what are the odds of getting him to be in our movie? And sure enough, you don't get if you don't ask. And
sure.
we asked, and he said yes. And we had a great meeting on the phone. I had not met him in person yet. And he flew up and to Vancouver and quarantined for a couple of weeks, and then came up to Penticton where we shot the movie, and he just loved it, and then he gets to ride a Zamboni. It's every Canadian's dream, I think.
And it was the pandemic. He got to grow a great handlebar mustache.
Yes, he sure did. That's the first question I asked him. I said, "What's your facial hair situation?" He goes, "Oh, I got a beard and a mustache." I said, "Okay, don't shave. Don't, just keep the mustache. Keep your hair long." And pretty much all the actors, I told them to do that.
Well, so I guess maybe I maybe jumped ahead because I got so excited. But for those who maybe don't know, I could read off the IMDb. Whoops,
sorry,
you lost me there for a second.
Yeah, I did.
I could certainly read offline, and you've given a little bit of the insights, maybe just direct from the horse's mouth, as it were. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit of summation of what Drinkwater is all about?
Okay, so Drinkwater is a funny 80s style comedy about a dysfunctional family called Mike and Hank Drinkwater. That's why the movie's called that. And basically, Mike is a teenager in high school, and he's not getting a lot of direction from his dad, who spends all his time at home and in his own little Hank's world delusion. And then he has a friend that's moved from the States and he's showing her around the small town of Penticton and all that. And of course, he's in love with the hottest girl in school, who's definitely unattainable, but he still wants her and all that. So, the setup of the story is kind of traditional, but I think the execution of it and the way it comes around is very original and very charming. So there's just a lot of chaos and mayhem that comes up. There's a lot of clever dialogue. Like I said, a lot of improvisation. There's hockey in there, and there's Tim Hortons, and we got Wayne Gretzky, a rookie card, and we're trying to cram it with as much Canadianisms as we can.
Oh, they were in there. The fact that the Wayne Gretzky rookie card is truly the holy grail of the movie is just, it's perfection. I wanted to talk to you for a minute if I could. I mean, Daniel and Larissa are fantastic, but Daniel's physical comedy floored me through the whole thing. What was his background? How much of this was direction? How much was just him? There was a lot going on there.
Well, I would love to take full credit for that, but I can't. It was all in the direction, I swear. No, it was Daniel. He's just genius. He's just so good. And the way I work, working all these years with Clint Eastwood, he does the same thing. He just lets his actors do what they do best, act. And that's, the thing I learned the most from him is don't micromanage, don't get too much in the way. And so we had a very, very tight schedule. I mean, this was an unbelievable big movie that we shot in 16 days, which was, ridiculous.
16 days.
Yeah. I couldn't believe
it. Oh my God.
No one can believe it when I tell them that. They go, "That's great." I said, "No."
I would have thought it took you 16 days to shoot the drive-through scene at the Tim Hortons.
Yeah, that was in about 3 hours, I think.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we had to go very fast and know what we're doing.
Wow.
And but I told the actors, as normally I like to rehearse with them and give them some direction, but I just said, "Look, I don't have time, or you have to go. You know the roles. I'll give you direction when I need it, but otherwise, just own it." And that's the best thing you can give to an actor, is to let them empower themselves and just go, "Oh, okay." Because a lot of directors do tend to micromanage, and actors become insecure. So I just said, "No, you've got it. Just go for it." And then, they would do a take. And if there's something that I felt wasn't going right, I'd give them a little whisper, and then they'd do the next take, and away we go. But most of the time their instincts were right on. And especially with Daniel, I ruined so many takes because I laughed out loud so many times, because I like to be close to the camera when we're shooting and near the actors. So it was very funny because, a couple of times I just laughed out loud in the middle of a take because Daniel would improv something or do something.
I can't even imagine trying to keep a straight face or stay quiet during that drive-through scene. That physical comedy, I was dying watching that scene. Like it was, there's something about the quirky but sweet awkwardness that he brings across, which just came through. It made me really feel for him, which is probably why, and I'm, not spoiling anything for anyone who hasn't seen the movie, I'll just say at the party, the scene with the red Solo cup with Daniel, I was out loud going, no. Like it was hurting me so much because I was my heart was breaking for him. But
that's my favorite scene in a theater when I watch it in a movie theater with an audience is they all
Oh,
scream. They're
oh,
all
don't
screaming at
do
the
it, don't
screen.
do it.
Yeah, don't do
Oh
it.
God,
Yeah,
it
so it
was
works.
yeah. As an expression my girlfriend likes to use is it was making my armpits sweaty watching
Yeah,
it, and it definitely was. I can't believe
yeah.
16 days. Like how even because there's I mean yes, there's not a huge number of locations, but even just for all the scenes running and
Oh
the
yeah,
outdoor
yeah.
stuff, and that's unbelievable that you did that in 16 days.
Yeah, I still can't believe it. Every time I say it, I just go, "How did we, I don't know how we did it." Like if I had to go back and redo it, I don't know if I could. It just sort of happened, you know. And that scene, the drive-through you're talking about, was I had pictured an actor doing that, sort of. And then when I asked Daniel, I said, "Daniel, I'm really hoping you're going to do it." He goes, "Yeah, don't worry, I got it. I'm going to show you something." And I kind of knew we were in sync as soon as he started going upside down. I went, "All right, this is exactly what I was hoping and imagining," you know. So it actually worked out well. But then, yeah, all the running stuff we did in one day, all the aerial
Oh,
stuff, and then the award ceremony and the start finish line was another day. So that was just 2 days of shooting all of that. Like everything that's running in the movie was shot in one day, basically. It's crazy.
Daniel must have been tired at the end of that day. He got his steps in, that's for sure.
Yeah, when he does the Q&As, people say, you know, what was your least favorite part of the movie? And he says running because he had to
Oh,
do so much running and he had a
all
bad
of that in
knee.
a day. My
Yeah,
God, like the
yeah.
track, the outdoor stuff, all of it.
The track, no, that stuff was another day, but
That was
anything to
another
do with
day.
that race was all
The
done in
race
one
was,
day.
oh man,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
was wow, that was something. Yeah. What I don't know whether this was I mean, it was clearly a choice because it comes up 3 times, but I don't know what the meaning necessarily was or if there is one. But why was Mike's shoe one shoe outside every day?
yeah. That's good. Not many people ask me about that, which is great because it's so obvious in the
I was
movie. But
wanting to find out why by the end.
no one, no one ever's asked that. It's so weird. They just take it for granted. Like, why is his shoe outside? No one ever brings it up in the Q&As either. I'm always waiting for someone to go, "Hey, why is the shoe?" Well, I'll tell you what. What happened is about 40 years ago, the producer Graham Fraser and his buddy Mike Drinkwater, they made a movie in a high school. I think in somewhere in Grimsby, Ontario. I think near that area where they went to school. Um, anyway, they made a film called Change of Pace, and it was a lovely, cute little film. But you know, back then you're students and you're all out partying, and they're pretty much drunk all the time. So they made this silly little film, and basically, that was the genesis for Drinkwater. And basically, back then, the character Mike Drinkwater, he would never come home every night, and he would just stumble and cross his front door, and one shoe would end up outside, and one would be inside, and then he'd be hung over in the morning, and then trying to get up and find his shoe. So we left that in as a homage to the original film, is that the shoe is outside. So there's really no more meaning for it than that, except at the very end when Mike goes to the big race. There's both shoes are actually brand new and inside the
Yes.
house. So it's just kind of shows his character arc and transition that he's
Absolutely.
gone
I was
through.
just waiting. I
Yeah.
wanted to see it happen. I wanted to see the
Yeah.
why. And
Yeah.
now you're saying with the producers, now I understand because being from the part of Ontario that I'm from,
Right.
there were Grimsby shirts in the
Oh yeah,
race.
exactly.
And I
Yeah.
was like, hey,
Yeah.
Grimsby, how are the people from Grimsby there? I'm in
Yeah.
Southern Ontario. And I'm like, I know
Oh, there
Grimsby
you go.
well.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
Well,
Mhm.
there you go. That explains that because it's supposed to be Canadian. And I mean, I've been to Penticton
Yeah.
many times. I'm like, there's no Grimsby around
No,
Penticton.
definitely not. No,
And
definitely not.
I don't know about the northwestern U.S. whether there's a Grimsby, but
Right.
that looks like Grimsby High School. So
Yeah, it sure was. Yeah.
that's incredible.
Mhm.
I wanted to talk about, and I don't again how much was the script and how much was maybe some more things that you put in terms of the story arc, but the father relationships and the comparative father relationships between Hank and Mike, and then the what did I and then Wesley and
Oh, yes, right.
his son.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah. That was all pretty much in the script originally. You know, is that weird dynamic between Mike and Hank. You know, and Mike is looking for some adult supervision from his dad and really isn't getting it, as you see in the movie. And then there's the Wesley Ryan, Luke Ryan thing where the dad is, you know, super involved, and he has that whole scene where he says, you know, I got a lot of money invested in you, and you better make a good return. Like very businessman, not really super loving or whatever, that kind of thing. So there's those weird dynamics because you know everyone has different families, and some people are in very loving families, some people are in very stern, strict families, and some are in dysfunctional family. So just to give you a little bit of range back and forth. So yeah, that was just all in the script, and the actors that played it did so well. Obviously, Eric and Bob Fraser did such a great job playing those lead roles.
For sure. And I just like that. And then how the sons are able to work it out, and then the fathers are able to, work it
Yeah,
well. It's
exactly.
great. One of the things, just from a purely behind the scenes set or location scouting purpose, especially now that I know it's in 16 days. Who did you get to wreck their front lawn like that for Mike and Hank's house? That
Yeah.
that house was in a state.
Oh, it was. It wasn't in such. It wasn't in much better state than we shot it, but we did take it down a bit for sure. And it was the first location I was shown, and I just said, "That's it." And they said, "Well, don't you want to see the other ones?" I go, "Well, let's go look," but this is it for sure. So we definitely, brought it down a little bit for sure, and let the grass die and let it grow, and told the homeowner don't change anything, and we added it. And my production designer Greg Venturi had drawn a drawing of what it could look like, and he threw a frisbee on the roof and all these weird things, and I went, yeah, that's perfect. And we still have the frisbee on the roof, and it's just weird stuff like that came out of just a simple drawing at the beginning. But we did wood paneling inside the house, which is something I remember as a kid in the 80s. Yeah, exactly. Because all the walls were painted white in there, so it was kind of boring. So we went in and just put the ugliest, tackiest wallpaper I could find, the wood paneling and all that stuff, just to make it look like this weird 80s vibe,
Well, and that was one of the interesting things is, yes, the house, especially the interior of the Drinkwater house, seems out of time
Yes,
from
definitely.
where the rest of the movie is. And especially Mike's bedroom could have
Oh,
been
yeah.
any 80s kid bedroom. He's even
Yeah,
a set player in there.
exactly.
Which
Yeah.
was, and the Bruce Lee, like Bruce Lee plays a major role. Was that again script, or was that something more you put in, or?
No, that again was script. It just was, again, the writers did such a good job of putting all these great ideas in there, and getting Bruce Lee rights are very difficult, but somehow
Sure.
we did. And it's a really, really great, like, again, homage to the 70s and 80s, because
Oh,
that room, the art department did such an amazing job with that room. Like I just said, like literally, my direction was like, make it look like the 80s threw up in here, and then they did. They just put so many great things, which dictated my shots, like the opening shot going down the headboard to find Mike. That was all because of all the cool stuff they had put in on the set. And I said, I got, this barrel full of monkeys, and there's this
oh yeah.
couple of pigs, and there's a lava lamp, and there's dinosaurs and all this stuff. I said, oh, this is so
But
great.
then also things that were in time, like there was the Iron Patriot, which is a very
Yeah,
more
yeah.
recent Marvel movie, action figure in there. Just it really it throws the viewer off balance in
Yeah.
terms of where are we, what's happening, and that's kind of how Mike feels in his home.
Yeah, exactly. He's got a cell phone, and people go, well, when does this movie take place? But it's like that cool. Yeah, we got the 80s vibe, but it takes place in modern times. Yeah.
Talk to me about the role of Hank's world as a physical space within the house that he's
Mm.
building, and how that sort of infects everything around him.
Yeah, that took up a lot of space in that room. There wasn't
Oof,
much left. I think it was a 4x8 sheet of plywood, and then we had to build this entire world. And we tried to get Lego on board because we wanted to, give that, but they said, well, you can't smash the Lego, and we're like, what? Okay, of course, kids do it all the time. Yeah, you can't show that on camera. So we
oh
ended
wow.
up just getting generic pieces and just kind of throwing it all around. And basically we all chipped in to build it because we were running out of time. We didn't have a lot of prep. And so the props guy was obviously overwhelmed with other things he needed to do. So basically Mike Drinkwater and Graham and myself, we all started building little pieces and towers. And I forgot who built the Ferris wheel, but anyway, it just was all a communal effort to get that table ready, because it was such a big part of the movie. So we wanted to make sure we got it right, and it looked really cool, and it sure did. We were very, very proud of that set piece for
For
sure.
sure. I mean, and it's meant to be sort of a metaphor of what's going on in that family too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and Mike even says it to his dad, you're in your own delusional world and
yeah.
Hank's world, and no one's buying that, that kind of thing. So it's definitely, yeah, he's in this little world, is getting away from reality, and just with the fake neck brace and leg brace and all that stuff. Yeah. Mhm.
Now you mentioned briefly earlier about working with Eastwood, and talk to me about the influence there on the work that you've done since.
Well, I mean, Clint is, an idol. Growing up in Montreal, he was my idol as a boy, and I had a dog named Clint, and I told my mom, I said, I'm going to meet Clint Eastwood someday. And she's like, yeah, sure. And sure enough, I did. In 1984, I met Clint, did Bridges in Madison County, and been with him ever since. And he's just been the terrific mentor, a friend, a father figure, everything I could ask for. He's just a real gentle, sweet guy, and he just leads by example. He lets you do your job to the utmost that you can and empowers you. And that's what I bring to the set when I'm directing. And even as a camera operator, I bring the same thing. I want everyone around me to help me make my job better. I always say if I'm the smartest person in the room, we're in big trouble. So,
Yeah.
Please help.
Surround yourself with a team, right?
Yeah, that's it. And I had such a great team on Drinkwater. I mean, the camera crew alone is literally the best crew in Vancouver, and props and script supervisor and production designer, and everyone was just amazing at their jobs. And so I was very blessed. And that's the only way I think you can make a movie in 16 days, is to have such great people around you. The crew was just great.
Well, and I can imagine, and from a directorial standpoint, as you've said, you don't want to over direct when you've only got 16 days. Now, the things I've heard, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I may be misremembering, but from interviews I've heard about Clint Eastwood as a director, he's very much, the direction may be just, maybe a little faster, maybe a little slower, maybe a little, a little louder, a little quieter, just subtle direction.
Exactly. That's, you nailed it 100%. Each one of those things are things that he says. Mostly it's go faster. He's always telling the actors.
And I'm sure that was your main direction, was 16 days. It's okay.
Exactly. Let's go. Yeah. And I like to shoot with 2 cameras all the time, so I can get the performances as many times as I can, and I'll change the angle. So I have a lot of stuff in editing. I had a brilliant editor, Chris Smith, did such a great job with the footage I gave him. And I was actually shooting Cry Macho in New Mexico while I was editing Drinkwater. So,
oh wow,
yeah, at night I'd come home from working all day and edit and send Chris notes and back and forth. And and by the end of the movie, I got to show Clint Drinkwater. It was a rough cut, it was obviously longer, but he loved it. He was laughing his head off. He says, "What a great little movie! This is really wonderful." Awesome. So it's kind of cool to get that kind of recognition from a man like him.
Definitely. Well, now talk to me a little bit about, because we've, with some of the other filmmakers that were at the Oakville Film Festival, we've had films that were shot pre-COVID and then sort of hung up in limbo during COVID and then eventually came out. But you shot during the pandemic. Talk to me about sort of pitfalls, any advantages that there may have been, any of those kinds of things in shooting in that way.
Well, the only advantage, I think, would be that everyone was available, which I brought up earlier. All the cast was available. Best crew was available. Luckily, they wanted to do a little indie film with me in the Okanagan, middle of BC. But
there are worse places to be.
Yeah, the worst. It's stunning there. It's a really beautiful part of the world. And anyway, what happened was the bad part about it, obviously, was this was all of our first films back from COVID. So the protocols were just in their infancies. We had to wear masks, obviously, and get tested, and sometimes face shields. But the beauty about where we were in the Okanagan and Penticton is there were literally, like, I think 5 cases at the time then. So it was very limited, and we stayed in our own little bubble. We were all in the same hotel, and we didn't go out, and because we shot it so fast, there literally was no time off. So we kind of just stayed together, which was a good thing in a way. So we didn't go out and party and, if someone got COVID, whatever. So we got very lucky. There was absolutely no cases on our movie.
Wow.
No one had to leave. So, but it does slow you down a bit because, you have a COVID coordinator to make sure there's not too many people on the set, and you got to refresh the air in the set and open the doors, and that takes a bit of time away from your day. And the wearing of the mask is hard to communicate, but, it all worked, and we were all very safe. And, despite all of that, we ended up, making a great little movie in a very little amount of time. So I just hope no one wants to do it again, because
oh God, no.
Yeah. That
well, you talk about a marathon versus a sprint. That is most assuredly a sprint.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
I just can't. The pace must have just been.
Yeah.
It would have been over just in a flash.
Oh yeah, like that dodgeball scene. I mean, I think we shot that like in an hour and a half. Like, we didn't have a lot of time.
God.
It was just like, just go shoot. Let's go. Let's move on. And then we got it done. And it was just like crazy. So, and even that kung fu scene, where she's recording with the camcorder, and Daniel is just so funny in that, and she's brilliant too. Like, her reactions are so good. That I shot that the whole scene with the dialogue at the table probably like a couple hours. Like, normally in a movie that would be an entire day. but
Oh, for sure. I can
yeah,
imagine. And I mean, again,
yeah,
you say her reactions, just the even subtle of pulling the camera away while
yeah.
she's watching him.
Oh
Just
yeah, it just
you're
kills
just
me.
looking at him like, what on earth are you doing?
Exactly. Yeah. And even Chloe, who plays the Danny, the hot girl, her reactions are just genius. And that's why sometimes I would leave the camera on her rather than stay on Daniel, because her reactions were just so genius to what he was doing. Yeah.
Well, I got to tell you, as someone who, as I said, just for work has brought me to places like Penticton before and has traveled all around to many smaller towns across Canada, just the encapsulation of the Canadian small town experience
Yeah.
and the practice rink versus the game rink and
Right.
just all of those things. And like just that, well, there's a hockey game. Of course, you're going to go to the hockey game. You
Right.
know,
It's the one thing to do.
right. And I can't tell you how much joy seeing Mike wearing two different Terry Fox t-shirts gave me as well.
Oh yeah, that's great. Isn't that beautiful? Yeah,
Oh,
that's yeah,
lovely.
yeah. That's. I think as Canadians, we're all obviously very proud of what Terry Fox did and continues to do. So we want to definitely give a shout out to him for that, for
Well,
sure.
it was wonderful to
Yeah.
have that in there. And I know selfishly,
Mhm.
I don't know what the possibilities of this are, Stephen, but
Right.
I personally would love to have a Drinkwater original soundtrack on vinyl for my apartment because
Oh
that was an
yeah.
incredible playlist of music.
It is pretty amazing. Yeah. Chris, my editor, and I came up with all of that. And it was a dream with like when you're making a film, you put in all this great music as a temporary
Sure.
placeholder because you're never going to be able to afford all of those songs. But after I showed the movie to Graham, our producer, he said, "Damn, you made a really good movie and you put a really good soundtrack in it. Now I have to pay for the soundtrack."
Oh,
And he did. God bless him. Like he put out his own money to pay for this incredible Canadian soundtrack. And a lot of people ask us to do a playlist or do an album. So I think hopefully we'll do that someday. I think it would be great.
I'd love to. I want to go
Yeah.
back through and watch
Yeah.
again to create the playlist myself on Spotify because it's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Oh, thank
It
you.
is so good. And
Yeah.
I one last question, and I want to
Yes.
this last question. We're going to go back to the beginning. I loved creatively and just visually the opening credits scene. Where did
Oh,
that
yeah.
come?
That was actually again in the script. It was Luke,
Oh,
the
really?
writers. Yeah, that was his idea, and he says, we should do this practically because we were all influenced by Napoleon Dynamite and things
Oh
like
yeah.
that, where they did that. So, and then we haven't seen that in a movie in a long time. So it was one of those moments where we felt, God, I'd love to do that, but we don't have the time to do that, So, but we somehow did it, and it was great. And Luke got out there and did a lot of the stuff, and we just got it made, and it was great to make the signs and get all that stuff done and run around like idiots try and get it on camera. But
And
yeah,
the only thought I had coming out of those opening credits was Eric McCormick, being a good Canadian kid, had to have wanted those hockey sticks with his name on them.
yeah, exactly. I actually still have them here in my house, so
That's great.
yes, I don't know if you'll ever get them back. Yeah, exactly.
Well, they were amazing, and
Yeah,
I can't recommend the movie enough to anyone that's listening. It is just, to say it's delightful is a massive understatement. It brings in all the things that you would love, as you said, from those influential John Hughes movies or things of that ilk from the 80s, and some of those story beats, but also takes some hard left turns into Canadiana and areas you don't expect, and just the music and everything. I can't tell you what a joy it was, Stephen.
oh, that's really nice. And I know you watch a lot of films, and so that's a really great honor to hear that. Thank you. We're very
Well,
proud of this film.
I can't tell you how much I loved it. And as soon as it's available for me to, own digitally, I will be purchasing it because that's one I want to watch again and again. It was really fantastic. And I thank you so much for taking the time to be on the Off Screen podcast with me today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm glad we got to do this finally. And
Yeah, the
yeah,
listeners don't know, we've been back and forth between you being on set, and then I was sick, and then I had
yeah,
no voice, and I was
yeah.
traveling, and we finally got to get this done. But I appreciate you making the time, Stephen. Truly a
Oh,
pleasure.
absolutely. It's
You answered
absolutely my
the
pleasure.
question. I'm going to let everybody go.
All right, you take
All
care
right.
of
Thank
yourself.
you
All
so
right,
much,
bye bye.
everyone.
Thanks, Ian.
See you again soon. Bye bye
You
now.
bet. Take care. Bye-bye.